Okay, everybody, thanks for coming to this afternoon. My name's Tony Bria. I'm a director for GRC Solutions. I'm based in Chicago. I have Sean Davison here from Great West Financial in Denver, Colorado, and we're going to talk about building an IT GRC program at Great West. A little background, Sean and I have been working on this going back over a year and a half now. We've implemented 3 solutions so far: policy and document management, IT risk, and we're currently doing security, threat, and vulnerability management. And then also we're moving into third-party management and case and incident. So Sean is a senior technical architect at Great West, as well as the senior information security analyst. So without further ado, Sean Davidson.
Hey guys, thanks for joining. I apologize now. Most of these presentations I've watched had pictures on the slides. Mine mostly consist of words. I also encourage you guys to make this as interactive as possible. I'll stop periodically and ask questions. Essentially what I'm going to be going over is lessons learned, kind of my experience with implementing this tool. I have some experience implementing other GRC solutions as well, so I have a good kind of comparative analysis to give you. So first I just want to start with the disclaimer. Go to the next slide. So these are my views. They're solely my views, and they do not reflect the views, opinions, or observations of my corporation. My HR department told me to tell you that. So there's that. And then I'm gonna read you our vision and then just kind of tell you about my company a little bit. Our vision states, we lead the way to a financial future where our clients are prepared, independent, and enjoying everything they value most. We partner with investment professionals nationwide and their clients to help create the best path forward with innovative strategies, solutions, and services for investing, insurance, and retirement. So essentially what that means, our line of business in the United States is retirement products. So we offer a variety of retirement products like 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, securities, annuities, things of that nature. Our many clients often include government and municipal agency plans. So like say you were an employee of the city of Seattle, your 401k would be vested with us. We do not offer products to individuals. We only offer them through corporations or these government agencies.
So for the most part, financial services firm, I think one of the largest in the States now, right?
Second largest behind Fidelity.
Yeah, so a pretty robust firm with a parent up in Canada that is also one of the largest firms in Canada.
Canadians are so nice though. They're great to have as parents.
Yeah, that's right. But owned by the Power Corporation.
Yeah, Power Corp is our father. You want to go to the next slide? Oh, you are. Okay. So we recently acquired a big chunk of retirement business from one of our large competitors. What that did is it kind of blasted us from a boutique to a department store in size. We went from like number 14 to number 2. So for the last couple of years, we've been gradually integrating all of their customers onto our platform in like 12 different iterative processes, and it's been kind of a challenge at points. So that's been mostly our recent activity has been doing that, but we finally finished that in February. So since we went from a boutique to a department store, with that arose the need for centralized, repeatable, consistent processes as we now aim to do everything kind of on a bigger, better, faster, stronger type of scale. We also became recently subject to the Department of Labor's Fiduciary rule. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it essentially states that investors, traders need to act with the consumer first, not themselves first, as had been hitherto. So that's been also kind of an interesting challenge that made some people upset, obviously. So being a financial institution, we are always subject to myriad regulations like GLB, FINRA, Division of Banking, Division of Insurance. We get tons of audits from those organizations. As well as we have tons of regulations brought on by our contractual partnerships. So if we have the plan for the state of New York and everyone who works for the state of New York, we are subject to every law, rule, regulation that is part of New York's laws. So Great West Financial is the steward of very sensitive, confidential financial information of our customers, and thus we have to protect it really very carefully with tons of different tools and processes, and that's essentially why we bought MetricStream, so we could add that to our repertoire of tools. We do SIM monitoring and DLP and all that kind of stuff too, to analyze network traffic, stuff like that. We're members of an industry group, which is called SPARK. I forget what the acronym stands for, but it's essentially a group of like the top 10 record keepers in the country. So we like to align all of our initiatives with each of those CEOs. We also must stay informed of all prevalent technologies. One section of my team does security threat and vulnerability. So they run penetration tests and vulnerability scans and essentially try to think from the lens of a hacker and a malicious actor to try to thwart those kinds of attacks.
So how many people are affiliated with financial firms that are here today? So a lot of the groups. Does these kind of notes also resonate with you too, these rules and regulations?
Okay. Yeah, money. Should you go to the next one? Next slide. Okay, so basically what I'm going to talk about today is, so our GRC focus stems entirely from IT security needs presently. We don't do any of like the ERM or ORM or audit or anything of that nature. We do have those teams, but they use different tools and don't want to play in the sandbox with us for some reason. So we only leverage MetricStream for IT security needs presently. We currently have implemented PDMS, the policy and document management tool, ITRM, the IT risk management tool for doing systems-based risk assessments. And we are currently in the middle of implementing security threat and vulnerability management, which aggregates all those penetration tests and scans and Nessus, all that kind of stuff that I was previously referring to. In Q3, we will be rolling out our most challenging portion of the tool, which will be third-party management. And then in Q4, we're going to do incident and case management, which essentially allows for fraud investigations, legal stuff, working with the FBI, that kind of stuff, on larger fraud incidents. So our main goals with this have been to augment what we already had, which was a pretty well-defined IT GRC initiative and program. So what we're taking is a bunch of like old manual processes and spreadsheet-based processes and centralizing them as well as automating them. That's essentially been our focus thus far. This will kind of ease our ability to provide evidence to all the auditors to which we're subject. It'll increase executive visibility. Right now, it's pretty tough to report to executive members with just spreadsheets. It's a lot more fun to show them dashboards and pretty colors. They love that stuff. So, and it'll also make our GRC efforts more objective and consistent. It takes the subjectivity out when you have an actual algorithm assigning risk ratings versus just your opinion. So our outcomes will now be much more accurate and objective.
And a little bit about their program. Sean is not only chief technical analyst, security analyst, but he is also the chief administrator for MetricStream at Great West. So he's
all by myself.
All by himself. So he's created this program himself, working with his teammates, but he's the administrator. And like we said before, he's had, I think, almost 11 years of doing this. He's done this for other firms, and he set this up at another large financial firm for about, 4 years, correct?
6.
So 6 years. So he has a pretty good idea of what he wanted to do. He knows the other tools out there, and he kind of crafted this whole program himself. So I know he kind of plays it down a little bit, but it was really yeoman's work on how he put this together.
Why, thank you, Tony. I guess I'll pause right there. Does anyone have any questions thus far or comments, or anyone implementing these same things?
outside of MetricStream as a vendor, I mean, how do you see leveraging, now you have put together taxonomy in the library, is there any DevOps thinking on putting some automation around it so that you can automatically test some controls? Where else are you leveraging it and without needing to ask anything from MetricStream?
I'm not really sure about that yet. I mean, we haven't really gotten to that part of our designing and planning at this stage.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So as I was mentioning before, we go on the next one.
Readiness, roadmap, and rollout.
Well, there's 2 or 3 titled.
Okay. I think that's the first one, right?
There we go. No. There you go.
Right there, okay.
Okay, so the solution areas we have, as I told you, are IT risk management, policy and document management, compliance management, which kind of comes baked in, and we use the UCF API. So one of the biggest things of value that we've encountered thus far has been the library objects in MetricStream. And since we are an information security program, we are subject to ISO 27001 and 2, as well as NIST 800-53. So we've brought all of those controls associated with those frameworks over from the UCF Common Controls Hub and mapped them to our policy statements. We kind of baked them into some of the risk assessments that we're now doing. So that's been really useful and helpful. We also, I forgot to put on this slide, we have issues management, which comes baked into all of MetricStream's platforms. And that's been pretty neat too. We're kind of designing and figuring out how to utilize that in a few different ways. We have a offshore presence in India, and they have like different rules and regulations that we hold them to, so they have to file policy exceptions. So we use issues management for policy exceptions. Our readiness for these applications was high. That we started with these first because these were the areas in which we had the most robust processes and immediate need to transition them over. So for the remainder of this year, we're going to be, as I said, deploying security threat and vulnerability, third-party management, and incident and case management, which is an incredibly aggressive approach. So I'm hoping that goes smoothly, but luckily I have Tony here to help me. We also intend to have other apps that are currently installed in full use as we incur the yearly processes with which we have them associated. So like the IT risk assessment we do on an annual basis, and we do like 17 different process areas that encompass all different types of systems. Like DBA would be one, for example. Our security engineering group would be another one, for example. Again, as I was saying, the GRC library objects are perhaps the best part of this platform, in my opinion. The interconnectedness and the relatability across each application makes them of high value, in my opinion. We have spent a lot of time building these, and we'll continue to build them as we mature. We're still fairly new. Tony said a year and a half. That's when we kind of started talking. We really have only implemented in the last 10 months. So we're still kind of trying to figure out how we want to utilize certain things, and it's an interesting up and down.
Well, yeah, and for the most part, what Sean wanted to do is he wanted to get up and running. So he wanted to take out-of-the-box technology. So he took the out-of-the-box technology, he made some tweaks here and there to some of the products. So one of them is policy and document. He created actually a new aspect to the policy and document management solution that we already have, where it can automatically delete, correct me if I'm wrong, but automatically delete and add employees as they go on and off your payroll, which was something that really helped him and helped the HR people be able to keep track of what's going on. And it not only helped them from a policy and documents standpoint, but their emails, all their access, all that was traceable. And they were able to create that for, I think it's over 6,000 employees now. And that not only covered direct employees, but indirect employees such as contractors and other non-full-time employees at Great West.
Yep.
Now, and that also covers everybody here in the States, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that he did with that, which security threat and vulnerability management We have an agreement with Nessus, which is a monitoring system for security and threat. We were able to create a new API for something called Nessus Security Center, which is a more advanced way of looking and monitoring risks as they come into your organization. So it's really been a partnership between both of us as we continue to build these products. And I think some of the people here that are either going through implementations or have gone through them or going through uses and understands more about the products, it helps to share this type of information. And then what we've done with Sean, we've shared that information with some of the people here in the audience, as well as other clients, and they've done the same with us. So it's been a very, very good partnership.
So thank you, Tony. That anticipated something I was going to bring up. So I was going to ask if those of you who have implemented already, do any of you guys do any kind of automated user provisioning or deprovisioning, or do you manually remove users as they get terminated or hired?
Kim, did they? Go ahead.
We have a manual process.
You do?
It has a little bit of automation to it.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's not really fully automated yet, but we're working into a solution for that.
Right. So we made kind of an oversight when we initially started partnering with MetricStream, and we thought that the user provisioning thing was just going to be baked into the tool. That functionality would already be there. So we had to kind of leverage a pretty big project to get that implemented. But we did. It was great.
Yeah, that's worked out well.
And can you explain how that works?
So it's like it's a SAML language. So there's we send a daily, we decided weekly would be frequent enough. We send a weekly exported file of our terminations or hires, new hires, and they just manually apply it to their server. So yeah.
I think it's done on what, Sundays?
Monday mornings.
Monday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
Yeah, does anyone else do that kind of thing? Manual? Seems like most of you must
Ian?
do manual then.
So right now we're actually working through that process to try and get it, integrated with all that.
Right.
And so right now I have to actually go and manually provision and provision people, but we're trying to make it automated provisioning. We're working with MetricStream to get that done.
Right.
We just work on a role-based access system, and so if there are 3 people in the same role, then they all have to be the same. They all have the same provisioning, and so that's something that we're working with MetricStream on right now.
Right. Yeah, MetricStream's been really good at so we give them essentially an LDAP feed. Yeah.
Anybody else? It's something to think about.
Definitely.
And
Yeah,
also,
if we could go back and do it again, we definitely would have planned on that
Yeah.
from the get-go initially.
and so we already have the scope and we can build that out. Also, we're working along some other lines with some AI lines right now with some of these products too. That'll evolve more as we get them up and running, so.
Like artificial intelligence?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Soon robots will be working for MetricStream. Okay, can you go to the next one? So the next slide kind of talks about countless dependencies we have between our GRC initiatives and our applications, all of which will kind of dovetail into the overall objectives for our GRC program. The issues management application will be heavily used by all branches of our platform. We're going to utilize it for audit findings, those exceptions to offshore policies that I was talking about. The UCF controls allow us to map different regulatory bodies, which is really cool because we have a lot of auditors regularly come in and they want to know where are you mapped, how are you mapped, show us. And now we can pull up policies and show the interweb, the web of connectivity. So that's been a really neat feature. So I'm just going to kind of talk about good things and bad things about our deployment process, and maybe you guys can kind of chime in and share some of your experiences as well. So I'll talk about what worked well first. Working with the implementation team has been incredible. I know their phone numbers by heart. I talk to them every day. They're awesome. They're very responsive. They're great support. Sometimes I'll call Josh, my main implementation guy, and we just kind of soundboard off of each other and throw ideas back and forth about how can we utilize this, how can we do this without changing code. That's another thing I probably should have mentioned to you guys. I don't know if you guys have customized, but we've stayed completely away from customization. We want to be able to do releases and patches and fixes and upgrades without any hiccups of that nature. So yeah, the team has been great to work with. They've been excellent at helping us get data migrated, user org set up. All the training went incredibly well. We've really liked the tool overall, absolutely. Some of the things that didn't go great were there were some slight misunderstandings in the beginning regarding, like I was just saying, the automated user provisioning and deprovisioning. In other tools I've worked in, that was like part of the tool out of the box. So we just probably should have asked that question initially, but they were great about providing that for us anyway. But in hindsight, we definitely would have planned differently because that initially led to a little bit of stagnation in the implementation process. So if I could go back and do it again, that would have been my first change. We also had a few hiccups with respect to our Sso integration, so that was interesting. So we use kind of an older technology for our single sign-on, and to allow our users to not have to enter their password each time they logged in was kind of a challenge, but something we were able to surmount. We've gradually socialized the use of MetricStream to other teams at Great West. We will eventually be extending its use to legal compliance and other control testers. So the way we're going to utilize ITRM eventually will be we're going to send like controls self-assessments to the control owners, and that will kind of serve as the backdrop on which I will perform our annual systems risk assessment. Currently, all employees will be utilizing it to view and search through our policies. That's been one of the cool things I've really liked about it. You can search based on title and content. So if you want to know about USB or encryption, you can just search that either through title or content in the PDMS tool. So that's been pretty cool. So I do have one picture, and it's a bike tire or wheel. So this is just like my little interjecting metaphor. The spokes essentially are supposed to represent all of these disjointed processes and different spreadsheets and stuff that we originally had, and MetricStream has kind of helped bring it all together as a hub, so that's why I threw that in there.
And one of the things that I kind of encourage people to do is develop your library. I think that's one of the key things that you should do right from the get-go is develop your library, make sure you're secure with that, and then roll it out with the rest of your plan. I think that really gives you a good base to work from and really kind of solidifies your entire program from somewhere you can really start with a lot of meat in it. I think some people want to do their workflows and end up with all new reports and everything. I really encourage everybody to just start with the library, build that up first, and then go from there. And that's what Sean's approach was at Great West.
Yeah, the library objects are incredible. We currently are using the assets, the controls, the risks, and one other thing that is escaping me, areas of compliance, I believe. But yeah, the interconnectedness of all of those is really solid.
And the other aspect is having all that data, especially with all the different solutions that he's using, in one spot.
Yeah, they feed each one.
And he's using the cloud right now. He is in the cloud.
Yep, if I could encourage anyone to use the cloud, that's the way to go, because, I mean, not only can you rely on MetricStream to... Do you have a question?
Just one question. So this morning's speaker is really...
So this morning's speaker mentioned that they have put a change control process on top of their GRC libraries, or at least they're planning to. I would imagine that depending upon the maturity of your GRC program, sometimes you have to, sometimes you don't. Do you have any thoughts and perspective? Does it apply to you? Does it not? And when and where people should think about it?
It could, yeah. I mean, I think that would be a great idea. We're not far enough in our maturity for that yet, but I would see that being a really good process. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I guess I have two questions.
Sure.
One is, how long did it take you to implement your current, what do you have today? And I guess maybe make this three questions. And then you're saying that you're implementing other modules as well. You plan to do that. You know, what kind of timeline you're thinking about that? And then lastly, you know, what kind of solution you're looking towards reporting, right? Because a lot of things that when we implemented a metric stream within my organization, we're still, that's one of the things that we kind of constantly have to think outside the box to kind of solution for. So I'm just wondering what's your
Right.
take on that?
So it took us a long time to implement these first few, mainly because of what I was telling you about with the automated user provisioning. We didn't want to go live in prod before that was up and running because we didn't want an inaccurate populace of users. So it took us probably 6 months to get to where we are currently. So for security threat and vulnerability, we're planning on about 6 weeks for that to get up and running in prod. And then third-party management, we're allowing like a couple months for that because that's going to be a lot of data that's going to need to be migrated. We have like past spreadsheets, hundreds of them for vendor risk assessments we've done and things that we're going to want to configure, like the DAO feed that comes baked into the functionality. We're going to want to tweak that to the liking that we need to use it with. And then incident case should go pretty quickly because we're not actually going to be migrating any data. That should be like probably a month. So we're kind of planning on all of that being done by the end of the year, I guess. What was your third question? Reporting. So we've only just started to play with like the reporting functionality. But yeah, you're right. That has involved a lot of thinking outside the box because you can kind of set up how you want things to appear and look. But yeah, I mean, we're again not that far into doing that yet.
What version?
We're 6.1.
6.1.
What are you guys on?
There are 6.
What solutions?
So we have the basically metrics, losses, reg exam.
So yeah, so I have the metrics, losses, reg exam, risk assessment, control testing. We're looking to get an internal audit and third-party management as well.
Is it on-premise or cloud?
Metric stream,
Yeah.
the cloud.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. And we're having seen the M7 this week. We're really excited to get onto that too. So, but we have to finish obviously implementing the rest of our instance, so we don't have 2 different instances. Anybody else have any questions at present?
Questions, observations? Do I have the right slide this time?
I think so.
Business value and realized benefits. Yep.
So currently, our executive reporting is done on spreadsheets with pivot tables. So one of the coolest things we've been able to do is Metric Stream is going to allow us to create dashboards, charts, and drill down on specific factors, trends, metrics to demonstrate KPIs, risks, etc. Our CISO, who's my boss's boss, is a huge fan of this. He is all about metrics, and that's one of the main realized benefits that we see coming soon. The STVM alerts, threats, vulnerability classification, workflow tracking, remediation planning and monitoring stemming from those scans is also going to be a massive value for us. Currently, we run all these scans. We have no way of aggregating the data. We have, projects that will respond and address those risks, but they're not tracked. Ownership is not handled as cleanly as one might want. So we're really excited to get this tool implemented. Another huge value, as I previously mentioned, is searching through our body of information security policies by content and or title has been awesome. I mean, we use that on a daily basis because we'll constantly get asked questions in RFPs about how and how we address A, B, or C type of rule. The UCF mapping has been awesome and brought really strong return on investment. We can demonstrate numerous regulatory frameworks to which we're mapped in both IT risk and policy and document through the authority document interfacing with the UCF API. This has also assisted us in exhibiting where we have gaps in these mappings. So when we mapped ISO 27001, we realized that, another group's policies would cover certain things, but we didn't realize that our information security policies themselves didn't directly address some of that control framework.
Does anybody else use UCF? Have you seen, you use it right now for your mapping?
So we actually, we're here Sunday and we just saw the mapping capability of UCF and really like that, so we're looking to get on the board with that. But today we're only using for IT risk.
Yeah.
And that's primarily what we use it for outside of the policies, because it helps give us a body of controls to test.
Well, Craig's here. I don't know if you've seen his booth. He's got the real good snacks right when you walk in.
Yeah, the beef jerky. He's the beef jerky guy.
I encourage you, if you want to learn more about UCF, go see Craig. It really is a great tool, and I can't recommend it. I highly recommend it.
So I guess none of you use UCF other than you, sir. But another really cool thing in the Common Controls Hub, so it's like a separate application where you create these authority documents. You can overlay two different frameworks and see what overlaps and what the differences are. So if I have NIST 853 and I have ISO 27001 and I want to see what overlaps and what the differences are, you just run this quick analysis in the tool and it shows you what you're already covered on, what you're not. So if an auditor comes up to us and asks us, are we FINRA compliant, we can say we're like 80% because we're mapped to these other things. That's been a really cool overlay component that I didn't realize we were getting into, but we've started using it all the time.
And from an implementation standpoint, it was part of the entire plan, so it didn't push us back now or really delay anything. It was just built right into the plan, right into the SOW, and worked well. Yeah.
I'm sorry, do you map the UCF to your policies? Like, does you have in the system?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
So there are two different, do you guys use PDMS? Do you use policy? Okay. So in the tool, you can basically create what's called an inline document where you can map to control statement, or policy statements rather. You can map the controls to those statements, but if you just have an attachment that you also want to do, you can just create a relationship between the two. So yeah, we have both.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes pretty helpful, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Any other questions? Okay.
I'm just going to continue with the more realized and, the next one. There you go. With more of the benefits. And then I'm going to kind of just give you an overview of what I would recommend doing if you're new in your implementation, things I've learned. So, again, I've been talking about the objectivity and consistency associated with this tool, which I find highly useful. The objective risk rating algorithms for both IT risk assessments as well as how we will leverage it to do third-party vendor assessments is one of my favorite things about it. So I've been playing with the algorithms a ton. So basically when you do an IT risk assessment, you assess whether the impact and the likelihood are high, medium, low. And then depending on that, you can have controls that mitigate whatever rating that is. So some of the algorithmic ways you can play around with changing it though is the way it comes out of the box is the controls add up to a sum, and that is the mitigation percentage that it brings the risk down by. But what I wanted was an average of the controls. So say you have 3 controls associated with one risk, and one of them is highly effective, one of the controls is highly effective, one's medium and one's low, then it'll give you a medium mitigation rating to give you the residual output. So that's been actually really fun to play with and become a super nerd about. So,
but it gives you pretty good insight into what those numbers mean and how that,
Yes.
how everything is derived.
Certainly. And we are a huge proponent of the cloud platform. In my previous role for 6 years, I was on a team of 20 that managed an on-prem installation of a very complex tool, one of MetricStream's competitors, I won't say who. But I urge everyone to move towards the cloud. It's much more secure. Anytime any releases come out or any new things need to be added, you can wholly rely on them. And it's also enabled me to be the one employee managing it versus an entire team. We are at the mercy of our implementation team, but they've been stellar to work with, and we've cultivated a great rapport with them. We take vacations together now and stuff. Any other questions before I kind of conclude some of this? Okay. So key learnings, I put a lot of thought into this. So we didn't set enough expectations for pushing our project and implementation along in the beginning, which was our fault. So I think what happens with a lot of people when they implement MetricStream is, they start the project and then it just kind of stagnates because you don't really know what to do first. So we kind of needed to come up with our own initiatives and stages, if you will, for pushing the project along. Our implementation team was and still is very helpful. We just kind of erroneously thought they would push more guidance and milestones for initial configurations. They give you the tool, they tell you how to use it, but the onus is on you as your organization to basically figure out how you're going to use it. So as we implement these new applications, we're definitely setting more detailed implementation plans in motion. So yeah, they let us drive the timelines, and that led to some stagnation in the beginning for sure. Standing up this platform and all the applications takes at least 3 times as long as you think it will. That's been my key learning here. So we initially thought we did the fast track implementation, which I think is fairly common for a lot of people. And they were like, it'll be ready in 4 to 6 weeks. And it was, the tool was ready, but that doesn't mean your design and your workflow and your configurations and all of that are going to be up and running in 4 to 6 weeks. So that was kind of a massive oversight on our part too. Another thing I would caution is to be crystal clear about certain use cases and provide as much detail in the requirements as possible in the RFP process and demonstrations. So there were certain things that we kind of assumed the tool could do in the beginning or saw and kind of glossed over in the demonstrations. And then once we started using the tool, we were like, oh, wait, what? That requires a code change? Wait, you can't do that? So definitely planning is crucial as you roll out new ones. Yeah, so we kind of drank the Kool-Aid initially and had a lot of demonstrations, and we thought the tool could do anything. And then now that we use it, it isn't always as configurable as you might think without changing code. Anyone else have any observations or experiences like that, oversights? Did everyone else's implementations take way longer than they thought? Yeah.
It's just part of enterprise software. But,
yeah, absolutely.
But one thing that I encourage everybody to do, and I come from the practitioner side, so for all the practitioners out there, I believe in crossing every T and dotting every I 3 times. Demonstrations always look nice. I think there's a lot of things that you can talk about, and there's certain intuitiveness that seems to come through these discussions, but getting everything down on a piece of paper and going through it and making sure that this is what I want, okay, I understand, that's what you want, is really the key to being successful. From where I come from, I think the tools are very good tools. I think M7 is going to really be even more of a successful tool. Now, there'll be tweaks with that just like anything else because we'll learn things as we go along. But I still think the key to everybody's success with this is the implementation phase. You have to have a good implementation. You have to set your expectations right away with our team through the configuration workbooks, through the scoping, through some type of fitment or fit gap analysis, and just make sure that it's done right. And don't move forward until you're secure with that. Because once you start, you're starting to go off on a certain tangent. And if you don't get that tangent, or if you don't have that plan the right way, there's going to be bumps. Now, with any type of implementation, there's always bumps. There's nothing that just goes straight. That's the world we live in, and that's how this works. But I think that the more you can get everything down on paper, like I said, I know I sound like a broken record, but get it down, make sure everybody understands it, have a plan, and execute it. And that's when you'll have a successful delivery.
Indeed. Are you on the last one? Best practices?
Yep.
Okay. So these are just kind of observations, best practices that I have learned. The automated user provisioning and SSO SAML authentication, I mean, those were critical imperative features in the beginning for us to install, both of which we thought were baked in functions. Not pointing any fingers, that was definitely our oversight, but that stalled the process. So if you are new or beginning to implement or something and you need something like that, you definitely want to plan on it taking longer than you might think. So those are just kind of initial hurdles that we eventually overcame. With one person managing the tool, these features became a huge time saver though. So like a lot of you we're talking about manual processes. There's no way I could configure and use this tool and be the administrator as well as on a daily basis removing and adding users. That would just become my life. And that would be kind of a waste of time for us. Our road ahead for 2017 is incredibly aggressive, as I was saying. You were asking about our scheduling. That's the hope. We hope we hit those milestones. It may take longer. We're planning on third-party management taking a really long time. So I think now our expectations are managed a little more accurately where they should be. We're implementing 3 new applications this year, as I was saying, and some with very complex processes and configurations. So this new work is going to compound the ongoing setup, data migration, workflow design, and general use of what we've already deployed. So that's kind of my experience with MetricStream and things I've learned. I guess I'll open up the floor to Q&A if you guys want to talk about anything else.
Sure.
Yes.
Sam's going to run over a microphone.
Hi, Orv Rody from Phillips Lighting. We're looking to get into the solution. Can you talk more about, you mentioned or you wrote on a slide, you didn't talk about it, the socialization within your company of MetricStream, and is that what led to these other new apps coming online? Essentially.
I mean, we knew we wanted all 5 of these apps in my department. So the socialization, we are going to be the initial ones to use it. We've just begun exposing the capabilities to legal and HR and showing them what it can do. So yeah, I guess I didn't touch on that. But they love the tool too. Mainly our legal department. They kind of want to use contracts eventually PDMS for contracts. And then there are, we've gotten some of our different audit groups kind of involved in some of the controls testing, stuff like that.
See, one thing Sean did is he reached out to how many other departments?
Probably 4
or 5 different departments other than himself, and brought those into the demonstrations, and then also brought them into the discussions. So it was a good way to do things because he was able to, their feedback, make them understand. I know that your CISO he's a big proponent of the tool and making sure that it gets implemented, but also he held the purse strings too. Mm-hmm. So he wanted to understand everything about it, and he wanted to make sure all these other departments understood things about it. So we had a lot of calls. We had demonstrations. We had scoping calls to just really go over and make sure that we can cover everything that we wanted to cover and build the program that he wanted to build.
You are correct. So with incident and case management, that came from exposing our legal department and our BCDR, Enterprise Resiliency department to the functionality of the tool. They were like, well, we want to use that for major incidents. incident response stuff. And we're actually going to connect it with AR, our ticketing system. So that'll be pretty cool too, once we get that rolled out.
What are you looking at? What solutions are you looking at?
So it's a complicated story. We're working with Ed Park. He can tell you about it. But initially we were going to start with, and I represent information security. So there was IT risk, policy and documents, and third party.
Yep.
And the idea was because our risk management group within information security is responsible for those areas. Turns out internal audit had a separate interest, and they actually broke through and are in the midst of an implementation with them right now. So we're really looking forward to utilizing the existing relationship already.
Sure.
But initially, I guess from my perspective, it's an information security focused solution.
Yeah, definitely.
Will you become the chief administrator of the tool from your aspect?
It's good to be wanted, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's intense though.
Any other questions or observations? Can we keep you guys awake? Is everybody okay doing out there?
I try to make it somewhat funny because some of them are so dry.
Yeah. Usually we do card tricks and weather reports sometimes, but we didn't have to pull that out this time.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Feel free to,
Enjoy the boat.
yeah. Feel free to come up with us anytime.
Yep.
Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.